Hello guys, so today we will start our week 10 session. So in this session we will talk about NMR spectroscopy. So NMR stands for nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. So we will see like how can we use this NMR to how this is very powerful. What do we do in this NMR spectroscopy? So this NMR stands for nuclear magnetic resonance. So first let's see a bare nucleus. Let's say we have some hydrogen atom or any atom. Okay. So it has nucleus here and in the orbit orbital is has electron. So this nucleus is also a spinning. Okay. Spinning means it has associated angular momentum. Associated angular momentum. Okay. I know. So this is a spinning like this. And because of this spin, it has magnetic dipole moment. Like because of the spin of the nucleus, it has magnetic dipole moment, which can be given by this equation. Okay. This is mu is magnetic dipole moment, and this I is your angular momentum. Angular momentum. Okay. So to show this NMR, I mean to be for NMR active, this mu must not be zero. Must not be zero. Meaning this I must not be zero. Because if this I will be zero, this mu will be zero, and that nucleus will be NMR inactive. For example, carbon C6 12 and oxygen 8 16. In both cases, I is equal to 0. So mu equal to 0. So these nucleus do not have any magnetic dipole moment. So these are NMR inactive. So you must have seen some of this in the lecture. So I'm not going into the detail. Like which of the nucleus will be NMR inactive, which of the nucleus will be NMR active. So this is a simple condition. Okay. So based on this equation, we will try to solve one problem. This problem is calculate the nuclear spin angular momentum and magnetic momentum of a proton. Given that I is half and Gn for a proton is 5.5, mu n is joule per test. This means. So we have I given 1 by 2 and we have Gn. Gn is associated with each nucleus. For each nucleus, G factor, we call this G factor. So G factor for each nucleus has different value. Okay. So for proton is 5.585 and mu n is equal to 5.05 10 to the power minus 27 joule per Tesla. Okay. So what the question is asking? Nuclear spin quantum number. Nuclear spin quantum number. So what is nuclear spin quantum number? This is spin quantum number. It's given by I multiplied by I plus 1 by 2 under root. This is h star. Okay. So substituting value here 1 by 2 plus 1. This is the unit. Okay. This is angular momentum. So angular momentum is the unit of h by 2 pi. So for h by 2 pi we are writing h cross. Okay. By solving this, we will substitute the value of h. We can write here something like 1 by 2 multiplied by 3 by 2. We can write h by 2 pi. Okay. And then we can substitute here 3 by 2. Okay, the value of H will be 6.626 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. 2 is to 3.14. So after solving this, you can substitute here 1.71. Okay. So you'll get something 0.914 10 to the power minus 34 joules. Okay. And then what this question is asking? Nuclear magnetic moment, mu n. So mu n we know is Gn beta n I plus r. Formula is, you can see here, this is like this one, and this is equivalent to under I into I plus 1. So this is nothing but your nuclear spin angular momentum. Okay. So after solving this, substitute the value of everything. So G is 5.8585, and beta n is 5.05 10 to the power minus 27 joule per Tesla. And here you can I is half. So after solving this, you will get something 2.44 10 to the power minus 26 joule per Tesla. So for n nucleus, you can calculate if you know the value of Gn and mu n. Okay. So I saw that every nucleus has associated its nuclear magnetic moment, and because of that, it has magnetic field. Okay. So the NMR active sample, if we can place this NMR active sample, let's try to see the experimental setup. So this sample is NMR active, means it has permanent nuclear magnetic moment. The nuclear magnetic moment is not equal to 0. Okay. So we can place between two magnets, north pole and south pole, and we can give some radio source. We can pass some radio source. So this radio source and the direction of the magnetic field because of the sample must be perpendicular. Why? We will see in the encoding slides. Okay. And then we will keep some detector. Okay, and then record. So this frequency, the frequency of the radio frequency is given by this. Where is Gn beta n B by H. This B is your applied magnetic field. This B is applied magnetic. So we can get NMR, we can record NMR either in two ways. One is, there are two variables. You can see here, this one and this one. So this is your frequency of this separation, and this is your applied magnetic field. So when you varied BF, then you have to keep this B fixed. Or the second option, B is varied and nu F is fixed. Okay. Let's try to understand with the help of this diagram. Okay. So initially we have nucleus, and here we don't have any magnetic field. Okay. So I will say magnetic field equal to 0. So at 0 magnetic field, all the magnetic moment will be degenerate. Okay. So once you apply the magnetic field, what will happen? This will split. So in the x-axis, you can see the strength of magnetic field increases in this direction, and the separation between these two levels is alpha up and beta down. So nucleus can have two spin like electron, alpha and beta. Okay. So alpha has like 1 by 2 spin quantum number, and the beta has minus 1 by 2 spin quantum number. So this alpha will be lower energy and the beta will be higher. So when you will apply the magnetic field, the separation will happen. Okay. And when you will apply the radio source, when the frequency of the radio frequency matches between the separation of this alpha and beta, the transition will take place. So here you can see we have applied three magnetic field, V1, V2, V3. Okay. And this nu F, this H nu RF, the energy of this radio frequency is matching this gap. So transition will take place at this magnetic field only, not here, at this energy, at this energy. So if you can plot here, so you can see signal versus magnetic field. So at B1 we will not get any. This is emission. The signal is against emission. Okay. So you can see here here the emission is decreases. Why? Because most of the radio frequency is getting absorbed by the sample. And here there is no emission. So here we have 100% transmission. Here we have 100% transmission. Here we don't have, because most of all the light are getting absorbed by the sample at this magnetic field. So based on this discussion, we will try to solve few problems. So first is the angular momentum for proton is given by. So angular momentum we saw in the first slide only is given by I under this in the unit of h curve. Okay. So is will be the correct option? Here first I. Okay. And the second question is which light source is used for the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. So we saw in the previous slide, for resonance spectroscopy we need a radio frequency. Which one? A radio frequency. The gap between alpha up and beta down is very small. So we need radio frequency. Okay, radio waves. So next question. Which equation describes the relation between resonance frequency and external magnetic field? So we saw something. This is resonance frequency is equal to Gn beta n B by H. So this is what we call Larmor equation. You must have seen in some of the lecture. So this we call Larmor equation. Okay. Next question. Which of the following nucleus are NMR active? For NMR active, we saw that I must not be equal to 0 and resultant magnetic moment must not be equal to 0. Okay. So we saw that C12 has, like, we can generalize any atom which has even number of proton and neutrons. These are NMR inactive. Okay. Rest other nucleus will be NMR active. So it's the first case, C12, and the atomic number of carbon is 6. Okay. So number of proton will be number of protons will be 6. Number of neutrons will be atomic mass minus atomic number will be 6. Both are even, you can see. So this will be your NMR inactive. Similarly, this will be your NMR inactive. So this both will be NMR active. Similarly, you can see for oxygen also 16, and atomic number is 8 is equal to number of proton, and number of neutrons is equal to atomic mass minus number of proton. Okay. Similarly, you can see for nitrogen also 914, atomic number is equal to 7, and this is equal to number of proton. So this is odd, you can see. So this will be your NMR active. Okay, and these two will be NMR inactive. Okay. Next question. So next question is, calculate the NMR frequency of proton in a magnetic field of intensity this much Tesla, given that G and mu. So what this question is asking, an hour frequency, means radio frequency, this radio frequency, okay? Given that you are applying how much magnetic field? 1.4092 Tesla, this much, okay? And what is your GN? GN is 5.585 and mu n is 5.505 10 to the power minus 27 joule per Tesla. So you know that this is nothing but your Gn mu n B H. So we can substitute all the values. It's pretty simple, okay? So it's a 5.585 multiplied by 5.05 10 to the power minus 27 joule per Tesla. And how much you are applying magnetic field? 1.4092 Tesla. And what is the value of that? 6.626 10 to the power minus 34 joule per second. So this Tesla can be cancelled out. This joule can be cancelled out. And after solving, you will get something 60 into 10 to the power 6. So it will be second inverse. Okay. The second inverse is inverse. The time is inverse of frequency. So you can write 60 into 10 to the power 6 hertz. So it will be like 1 hertz equal to 10 to the power 6 hertz equal to 1 megahertz. Okay, so it will be 60 megahertz. So when we will apply this much magnetic field, so the frequency of light you will require is 60 megahertz. Similarly, the next question is calculate the magnetic field strength required. The reverse question. Okay. Here you have given for fluoronucleus you have given the frequency of light that you require is 60 megahertz. Then what should be your strength of magnetic field that you are applying? Okay. Similarly, we can calculate this. We can separate out from this equation. So I will write mu RF Gn Vn B by H. So asking B. So you can replace this. Okay. So it will be H mu RF Gn V. Correct. So you can substitute all the value. So it is simple. So it is 6.626 10 to the power minus 34 joules second, and the frequency is how much? 60 megahertz. So we can write in second. So 10 to the power 6 per second. Like 60 megahertz equivalent to 6 10 to the power 6 hertz, and this hertz is equal to per second. Correct. And what is the Gn? Gn is 5.257. Told you for every nucleus the value of Gn is different. So hydrogen it was 5.585. Here for fluorine it is 5.257. So for every nucleus it will have different Gn value. Okay. And what is the mu n here? Mu n is 5.05 10 to the power minus 27 joule. This mu n you can calculate if you know I. Okay. If you know the spin quantum number of the nucleus, then you can calculate the spin angular momentum. Correct. So this joule and this joule can be cancelled out, and this second can be cancelled. So final unit will be Tesla. The value you are getting, you will get 4.973. So for other nucleus, for hydrogen, we are applying 1.4093. Higher, little higher, this is little lower than this one, and we required 60 megahertz. Here we have to apply a little higher magnetic field for the same radio waves. So later we will see like on what factors these are all the thing depends on. So we will see those things. Okay. So here we understood like what is the radio waves, we require for transition? What is the magnetic field we require? So we read two conditions, two different conditions here. Okay, these two conditions, and based on these two conditions, we try to solve few problems. Now let's say we have different nuclei having different direction. So for this brief, you read in the lecture note is clearly given. So this is your nucleus. This is your nucleus. Okay, this is your nucleus. So that let's say this is your nucleus. This nucleus is spinning around its own axis. This is your, let's say this is your z axis. Z axis. And we applied a magnetic field parallel to this z axis. Okay. This is applied magnetic field. So what will happen? There will be interaction because of these two. It will shift a direction, and the resultant direction will be this. Okay. So there are two factors. One is it's rotating around its own axis, this way, and it's rotating around the magnetic field, like this. Okay. So like a ball, like a lattu. So rotating around one axis and then rotating around a line. Okay, like this. So because and this is called Larmor frequency. This rotation is called Larmor frequency. This is given by gamma Bj. Okay. So if your strength of applied magnetic field will be higher, this Larmor frequency will be higher. So someone may ask on what factor this Larmor frequency depends on, then you can say it's applied magnetic field. And this gamma is constant. This is called magnetogyric ratio or gyromagnetic ratio. Other way you can say that. And this is nothing but your 2 pi mu by IH. Now this was a brief. Since the nucleus is rotating, when you applied magnetic field, okay. So when the nucleus is rotating, when you applied magnetic field parallel to that, it will it will make a precession motion. Okay, and because of that precession, it will have precession frequency that we call Larmor frequency. Okay. So we try to solve one problem. See, for a spectrometer operating at 1 Tesla, and the NMR frequency required is 40.06 megahertz. Correct. So what will be your magnetogyric ratio? So this is helpful in calculating this magnetogyric ratio. So we can write this equation. Now we know that Larmor frequency omega L is gamma applied magnetic field. Okay, so we need to calculate this gamma omega L Bz. So omega is nothing but 2 pi mu, correct? So this is an angular angle. So we can write 2 pi mu, and this is your Bz. So it will be 3.14, and this is given 40.06 10 to the power 6 per second. Your Bz is 1 Tesla. So when you solve this, you will get something 2.517 10 to the power 8 per Tesla per second. This problem is very similar to the previous problem, so I will solve this. So again, this is asking calculate magnetogyric ratio. So you can directly write gamma be 2 pi mu by B, and when you will solve, from this equation you cannot calculate this gamma because this applied magnetic field is not given. This nuclear magnetron is given, so we can use other equation mu H cot. So it will be like here 2 pi mu I H. So 3.14, and what is the value? 1.13. Okay, 1.13. And the spin here is half, and 2, this is 6.626, 21 minus 34 second, and the value of mu n is this one. Okay, mu n. So 5.05 minus 27 joule per Tesla. By solving this, we will get something 1.083 10 to the power 8 per Tesla per second. And then you can calculate this using this equation, mu equal to Gn mu n I. So here you can calculate mu. Mu is nothing but here 1.1305 mu. So you can substitute, you can write here 2 pi 1.1305 mu h, and then we can push it like this. Mu and I is 1 by 2. Okay. And we know that this is equal to 1.1305 mu n is equal to 1 and this is 2. Compare 1 and 2. So you can write Gn mu n I. Okay. So we can cancel out this, and we know I equal to half. So half will make double of this. It will be 2.261. Correct. This is correct. Gn. Okay. So these are the fundamental questions on NMR, like what is the frequency, what is the strength of magnetic field. These are the parts. The next coming part is thermal equilibrium. Okay. So let's say we have two states. We have two states here. So this is alpha up and this is a beta down. Okay. So we want to calculate the relative population. We can calculate using Boltzmann distribution. Okay. How? This way. So the n upper is nothing but your n beta. Okay. N lower is nothing but your n alpha. So this can be given by e to the power minus delta E by kT, and delta is separation between these two energy levels. This is given by this Gn mu n B naught. B naught is your strength of applied magnetic field. Similarly, you can derive this equation to calculate the excess population. Okay. See, this equation was the drive. This equation was derived in the lecture notes, so you can refer there. Okay, I'm not going into the detail. And for NMR, this is the condition. Again, I'm not explaining this condition. Already explained the detail. So the rate of overall absorption, like absorption means we have many nuclei here, many nuclei here. So the rate of absorption by this nuclei to go here is given by this B nu rho nu and this difference n alpha minus n beta. Difference is the population. Okay. And here B is nothing but your Einstein coefficient, not magnetic field. This B is Einstein coefficient. Okay. So this is called equilibrium saturation. This is called equilibrium saturation. So after the transition, the difference in the population will be almost zero. Like n alpha minus n beta will almost be equal to 0, and this is called saturation condition. To avoid the saturation condition, there must be some mechanism to restore this equilibrium so that we can perform NMR further. And this is called a relaxation mechanism. By relaxation mechanism, we can restore the equilibrium saturation from saturation condition. So we have two ways to do that. One is longitudinal, or we can call spin lattice relaxation. And the time required for this spin lattice relaxation is T. So what will happen in the spin lattice relaxation? The nuclei with having beta spin is in the upper level, will transfer the energy to the lattice, and it will come transfer to the lattice and it will come in the alpha spin. This excess energy will be transferred into the lattice. That's why we call a spin lattice relaxation. Okay. The second is transverse, is a spin relaxation. So spin relation, let's say like we need this spin. Let's say the like present in the xy plane. So it will change its spin. So this is called a spin relaxation. And this is the reason, this spin relaxation is the reason for the broadening, NMR peak broadening. Okay. So let's say we plot like this. And this are the explained where in the lecture. So this broadening is called uncertainty broadening, and why this happens is because of a spin relaxation. Okay. So based on this summary of the lecture note, we will try to solve few problems. The first is calculate the relative Boltzmann population of the proton spins in the lower state to the upper state in a magnetic field of flux density 1 Tesla at room temperature. At room temperature, what is the excess population in the lower state? Excess population. Here we try to solve this problem. So what this question is asking? This n alpha divided by n beta. So we try to calculate this. Hold a second. The n alpha by n beta. So by solving this equation, by solving by solving this Boltzmann distribution law, we got something, this equation in the lecture note. So you must refer there. 1 plus Gn mu n you can write beta n, both are same. V naught by kt. So everything is given here. See, 1 plus, what is the value of Gn? For proton it was 5.585. And what is the value of mu n? For proton we know that 5.05. In the previous questions we saw there, this was joule per Tesla. Correct? And what is the value of B naught? 1 Tesla. What is the value of K naught? This is Boltzmann constant, 1.38 10 to the power minus 23 joule per Kelvin. And temperature is 298 Kelvin. By solving this, we will get something 1 plus 6.686 10 to the power minus 6. It's very small number. The changes are very small. You can see the difference is very small. So n alpha, the conclusion is that we have two states, alpha and beta. So there is a very small difference in the population. You can see the difference. If the population of alpha and beta will be same, then this ratio, this n alpha by n beta, must be equal to 1. So it's little greater than 1. So that's why there is a small difference in the population between alpha and beta. Okay. Now this question is asking excess population. So excess population we can calculate in this equation. N alpha minus n beta, n alpha plus n beta, sorry, capital N, you can write. Okay, this was given by, we saw in the previous slide also, is given by Gn, beta n or mu n, you can write whatever you want. So B naught or B you can write 2 kt. These were the equation. So again you can solve it and you will get something. You can substitute here. Gn for proton is 5.585 and beta n is 5.05, 5.05, 10 to the power minus 27 joule per Tesla. And the negative here is 1 Tesla. 2, 1.38, 10 to the power minus 23 joule per Kelvin, 298 Kelvin. Okay, so it's 3.343 10 to the power minus 6. This was the excess population. Excess population in the alpha star. Okay, so coming to the next question, the width associated with NMR peak is spin relaxation or transverse, both are same. So B and C will be correct option. Okay. Second one, which are the correct statement regarding NMR spectroscopy? So this is MSQ question. So NMR Einstein A coefficient is much smaller than B. This is incorrect. We saw this one not the condition. This is correct. Second option is correct. Population of upper and lower strains are almost same. Correct. Are almost, there is small difference. The energy gap between G1 levels, no, it's very small. That's why the population. The population you are writing the equation this one, and alpha by n beta the power delta E by K. So this energy is very less. That's why this ratio is very small. Okay. So coming to the next question. Solid state NMR experiment gives broader signal than in the solution state. Which of the following is reason behind it? So the time required for the transverse relaxation, the spin relaxation in the solid state is much smaller. So we can write this T2 time required for transverse relaxation. Okay. So T2 for solid is smaller than liquid. Why? Because of this wobbling and all the molecule will be wobble, will do wobble and all. Okay. So because of this small T2, this NMR peaks in solid will be more broader. Okay. So transverse relaxation time is long in solution than solid. This is correct. First. Okay. So the width of the signal is not related to the spin lattice. So both can be discarded. Okay. Now coming to the next question, summary of lecture 49. So in this lecture you will see a selection rule and the problem based on selection rule. So the first is the magnetic field due to light must be perpendicular to the externally applied magnetic field. And why is that? So this thing we are discussing in the lecture, but still I will explain a bit. So let's say we have this is the your applied magnetic field B, okay, and this is your axis of, this is your BL, magnetic field of the light. It both will be perpendicular. Why? Let's say we have two spin, we apply the magnetic field. As a result, there will be separation in the energy level. Okay, so this is alpha up, and this is your beta down. Right? So it's all like in the presence of external magnetic field, and because of on magnetic field of the nucleus, there will be precession. We call this Larmor precession. So it will be in this direction. You can see here the role of Larmor frequency. Okay. Because of this Larmor frequency, the transition is possible from here to here. Okay. There are a lot of magnetic moment here, like this direction, this direction, this direction. Okay. So because of this Larmor frequency, this Larmor, the transition can happen only if this BL will be perpendicular to the B. So this is your applied magnetic field, this is the frequency of the magnetic field of the light. Okay. Then only transition can happen. The second is that this delta Mi must be plus minus 1. So the transition between successive energy level is possible, is allowed. Okay. So based on these two conditions, you will try to solve few problems. And the third one is shielding constant. So you understood here why we need this condition. Third one is shielding constant. What is shielding constant here? So let's try to see like two examples. Okay. CH4, and I will say CH3 COOH. So this is your methane, and this is your acetic acid. Okay. So both has 4 protons. Number of protons equal to 4. Okay. So both should get one peak, one signal like this, and here also. So in this case, NMR is not helpful at all. It will help in just qualitative analysis. If all the 4 protons in both the molecule are same, then this NMR will not be helpful at all. It will be a qualitative analysis. Okay. So how it will be helpful? So this both cannot be same. And why is that? Because the electron present in the atom. So till now we were discussing about bare nucleus, means for atom. But for a molecule, for atom also, for molecule, let's say we have hydrogen. So this is your hydrogen nucleus, and this is your electron. So because of this electron cloud, you will have magnetic field. Because of this electron cloud, you will have magnetic field. And this magnetic field will oppose the applied magnetic field, and this is called shielding. Higher the shielding, it means you will have to apply higher magnetic field so that it will match your radio frequency and transition can take place. So this the magnetic field generated because of the circulatory electron is given by BEL, which is directly proportional to the applied electric field. What does it mean? It means higher the magnetic field created with electron, higher the magnetic field you have to apply. Okay. And if you will remove this proportionality sign, you will have some constant. This constant is called shielding constant. This constant is called shielding constant. And the sign of this minus indicates this magnetic field generated by the electron opposes the magnetic field applied magnetic field. Okay. So local magnetic field will be B minus sigma B. So we can write this one. So nu, we know that nu initially it was given by Gn beta n and here B. So this B for all the proton or all the atom for which we are performing the NMR will not be same. Why? Because of this local magnetic field generated by the electron. So this B is making the things interesting. So for this B for different proton will be different. Means for different protons we will have to apply different magnetic fields. Okay. So based on this we will try to solve the problem. So your actual will be this one. So for different atom you will have different shielding constant, and this different shielding constant will make this whole term different. So the first question is, how can you explain there are two types of proton in the acetic acid? So for formula we know that CH3 CWO, that's the structure we can draw. 3 hydrogen. So let's not draw now. Okay. So these three proton will be CH3 CWO OH. So this hydrogen is directly attached with oxygen. So oxygen can pull some electron here. This oxygen will pull some electron. This oxygen will pull some electron, and this. So this hydrogen is directly connected with more electronegative oxygen atoms. It will have partial positive. So the electron class has been shifted toward oxygen. So it is less shielded, and this is more shielded. More shielded. More shielded means your B here, like we'll say B1, and for this I will say B2. Your B1 must be greater than B2, because we saw in the last lecture this B actually is nothing but your B1 minus sigma. So higher the shielding means you will have to apply higher the magnetic field, so that this will equivalent to your nu RF. For the transition to take place, you will have to apply higher magnetic field. So if you draw the spectra, so first for this hydrogen the peak will come. So I will draw in this direction. Okay. And for this, the ratio will be 1:3. For one hydrogen you get 1 peak, for 3 hydrogen the intensity ratio will be different. And this will be your magnetic field. Okay. So this is your B1 and this is your B2. So by this way, by comparing the shielding constant, or simply by looking the electronegativity and making analogy, you can see like at which magnetic, like we can see the effect of that shielding constant, how it will make the proton different. Second question. So shielding constant, lecture note of summary 50, the last lecture note of this session. So we have one term delta H, that is called chemical shift. Okay. So you see in the detail, the delta is defined as new reference. This new reference, what is new reference? Why do you need new reference? Why you use tetramethyl CL as a new reference? You can see all the details in the lecture 50. So this can be defined like this way: sigma reference minus sigma H. Larger the screening means higher the value of sigma. We call this upfield shift. A smaller the value of delta. Delta is called chemical shift. Okay. Chemical shift. So higher will be shielding, a smaller will be delta, inversely related. And this is called upfield. You will see in some organic chemistry literature. A smaller the screening, downfield shift. We call this downfield shift. Larger delta value. And the unit of this chemical shift will be your ppm. in ppm. So we represent this delta in ppm. Because of this, you can see this equation. This equation was derived there in detail, so you can see it. Okay. Now coming to the factor affecting chemical shift. So first is electronegativity. Okay. So you will see four molecules: CH3, I, CH3. We will see two only. F and I. So electronegativity of fluorine is much greater than is 4. For iodine is around 2. So electronegativity of fluorine is higher than iodine. So this will pull more electron than this one. So the proton of here is this proton is more deshielded. Why? Because the electron cloud has been pulled towards fluorine, less deshielded. So the delta value for this one is will be higher. So you will see delta 1 and delta 2. So delta 1 will be greater than delta 2. Why? Because your sigma 1 is smaller than sigma 2. Okay. By simply comparing this, we can make an analogy, we can compare that to the things. Okay. Second is delocalized pi electrons. So let's say you will have some ring, benzene ring. So how this benzene ring will shield the proton, or how this will shield the proton. Okay, this thing. So if the magnetic field is enhanced because of the delocalized electrons, there can be two cases of this delocalized pi electrons. One is if the magnetic field is enhanced, we will have lower delta value. If the magnetic field is less, we will have high delta value. For example, aniline. So aniline, we have some bigger structure, and it has been let's say some this kind of bigger structure. So it has some proton inside and proton outside. So this inside proton is well sealed by this pi electron cloud. This pi electron cloud. So that's why this is very, the value of spectral is shielded, well shielded means a smaller delta value. So it will go in negative. You can see some other example, propylene, some other example. And third one is spin coupling. So before going to the spin coupling, we will analyze again the CH double NMR. So there we saw two type of proton. Okay. And it's a proton 1 and these all are proton 2. So if you draw the spectra, you'll get something like, so this is less shielded, so it will get less magnetic field, and this is more shielded, so it will get high magnetic. But is this correct? So for example, let's say we select one example, CH and 3, and here we keep CH, and here we write CWH, and let's take one example of alkene. This hydrogen, let's Cl, let's Cl, hydrogen, Cl, Cl. So like if you will get some cases where like in enantiomer or diastereomers, in enantiomers, this is a cis trans, so these two protons seems like the same, these two protons seems like same, but in low resolution NMR you will get something like this kind of peak for this acetic acid. Okay, in low resolution NMR, but in high resolution NMR you will see that. So here I did not explain one thing. You can see there the effect of temperature and all. Yeah, you can consult the lecture now. How this temperature affecting everything here. Why do you need low temperature? Why do you need spectrometer with very high magnetic field? All those things. spin coupling. So what is happening? The spin of this, let's say you write CH3 and you will write some CH2 and here OH. So the spin of this nucleus can interact with the spin of this. So this is called a spin coupling. Spin coupling. So if you try to draw the NMR of this ethanol, so you will get something like this. This is connected directly to which oxygen? It will go here, you will draw something like this. So you will get something 3, 2, 1. You will draw reverse. It's incorrect. So first this is less more shielded, like less shielded, so it will come at lower frequency. So 1, 2, and this is 3. So 1 is 2, 2 is 2, 3. Okay. So this one we get in low resolution NMR. But in high resolution NMR, you'll get something like, for this one, you'll get some single E. For this one, you'll get some four lines. So small, and then big, and then equal one, and then this one. Okay. So better I will draw in line. This you are drawing this line. I will draw a line. So let's say this is for this OH. Here you get something 1. Small I will draw. Second, third, fourth. This is for here OH. So I will label it. I will say 1, 2, 3. So this is your because of second proton. And the third one is your, you will have 3. 1, 2, 3. See, it was split into the finer structure instead of one broad peak. Why? This is because of spin coupling. Why? Because this spin of this nucleus interacted with the spin of this nucleus at the end, and this is called spin coupling. So in this plot, this is your higher sigma in this direction. So delta will be higher in this direction. The reverse of sigma. So delta is your reverse of sigma. Okay. And the separation between these two, separation between these two is called J. You saw in the lecture. This is we call coupling constant. Coupling constant. This coupling constant and this delta value, NMR, chemical value will be very helpful in the analysis. Okay. So based on this spin coupling, we will try to solve few problems and then we will end the lecture. First question is correct statement regarding shielding and chemical shift R. So this is MSQ, multi-select question. So first is larger shielding means upshift. It was correct. Right? It is correct. Downfield correspond to smaller delta value. Correct. Downfield means less shielding means higher delta value. Third, larger scaling means downfield shift. Incorrect. The greater the shield, less will be the local field. Incorrect. Greater the shield, shielding is more. Means the magnetic field created because of the electron will be higher, correct? So first only one option is the correct. First option is correct. Second question. According to Pascal triangle, the intensity ratio for n equal to 3. And here one thing I forgot to mention. This coupling is dependent on is n plus 1 rule. This is called n plus 1 rule. N plus 1 is for adjacent. Let's say you have some 2 hydrogens, so a splitting will be in 2 plus 1. So you have triplet. So that's why it's a triplet. It's quartet. It's singlet. Why? Because there are no adjacent hydrogen here. Sorry, according to Pascal triangle, the intensity ratio for n equal to sorry n equal to 3. The intensity ratio for n equal to 3. So we know the splitting, okay? N plus 1 rule. So we know 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So Pascal 4 for 4. So we can write like a plus b quadratic equation. 4. You can write this and you can get some value. A4 and then 4 a cube b and then your 6 a square b square and then here again 4 a b cube and then b4. So ratio will be the coefficient of this number. Coefficient is 1 4 6 4 1. So the Pascal triangle, so it will be for n equal to 3. So total number of number is 3. So you will write it to a plus b ka whole cube. So it's a cube 3 a square b then 3 ab square and then b cube. So your coefficient is 1 3 3 1. So this is a correct option. Next question. The phenomena where the electron density surrounding a nucleus affects its effective magnetic field is known as, what is that? Shielding. What is this? Shielding. Chemical shift is like an analogy. We defined this, but actually this is called shielding, correct? In NMR spectroscopy, which compound is used as reference standard for both proton and carbon spectra? For both proton and carbon spectra. So this was the xenon. CS3, this is we call xenon. Why? Because it has very high shielding constant, and second is it is soluble in the most of the organic solvent. So this is correct option. The number of fine structures. Fine structures means, let's say we have broad peak, and because of spin-spin coupling, it has a splitting. So you will have some fine structures. So fine structure is given by n plus 1 rule. I told that it's n plus 1 rule. And n is number of proton in the adjacent atom. We will say carbon here for organic molecule. You will say in the detail. This is the fundamental of spectroscopy. So that's why you are considering adjacent only. You will have like different some coupling, double coupling, and then in cyclohexane you will say some in the second, third coupling with third atom. Those things I am not discussing here. Okay. Again, for a proton which is coupled with two other 2 protons. So let's say you have 1 proton here coupled with 2 proton. Okay. So what is the number of proton in that adjacent? 2. So number of fine structures. Number of fine structures is n plus 1. So what is the value of n here? 2. So 3. And from Pascal triangle, we can write a plus b whole cube. So here a cube plus 3 a square b plus 3 ab square plus b cube. So what is the coefficient? 1 3 3 1. So these two are similar, so we can write 1. This is total number of 2 and this is 1. So this is a correct option. The number is 3. intensity will be 1 2 is to 1 is to 2 is to 1. 1 is to 2 is to 1. This one is correct option. Next question. What factors influence the chemical shift observed in the NMR? Which factor? Neighboring atoms and environment. Sorry. See, because of no, this is the correct option. Neighboring atoms and the environment. Yeah, it is coupling with adjacent atom of hydrogen. Let's say this hydrogen. So it will depend on this environment also. This environment dictates its shielding, deshielding, and this atoms adjacent atom will determine how many hydrogen or other compound is present to couple. Okay. Next question is describe the high resolution PMR spectrum of 112 trichloroethane. PMR is proton NMR, proton magnetic resonance. Regio. So it's trichloroethane. So you'll first talk ethane. Ethane has 2 carbon. So it's 1 So 1 Cl and 1 Cl is here. Rest we can write hydrogen. High resolution. So first this carbon has 2 chlorine, and chlorine will pull the electron. Okay. And this carbon will pull the electron. So this is less shielded. And this is these 2 hydrogen more shielded, because this carbon has only 1 chlorine. Less shielded means this magnetic field B1, B2. So your B1 will be greater than B2. So if you try to draw the PMR spectrum, we will get something. One line here and the 2 line here. The intensity will be 1 is to 2. This is your low resolution NMR. So in low resolution NMR, you will not see the finer structures. Now for finer structures, we will consider a spin coupling. Correct. For a spin coupling, we will see the number of hydrogen atoms or proton present on the adjacent carbon. So here there are now 2 proton, here 1 proton. So for this finer structures will be 2 plus 1 means 3. In the intensity 1 is to 2 is to 1 according to Pascal triangle. And for these there is only 1 proton adjacent, 2 adjacent carbon. So n plus 1. So 1 plus 1 2. So intensity will be 1 is to 1. So if we convert this into high resolution NMR, we will get something like triplet. Correct. So you will get small ampere, then large ampere, and then 2 a small. This intensity will be bigger. Let me change it. Pen. So you will get something like this. Is not like that. So I am not drawing this perfectly. And this is a doublet. Okay. So this is a delta increasing, and this is a sigma in this direction. Okay. And you have absorbance here, intensity, whatever you say. Okay. So this is your spectrum, ppm. Correct. Next question. A compound with empirical formula C4H10O gave a PMR consisting 2 group of peaks. There are 2 peaks with relative intensity 3:2. With relative intensity 3:2. Another substance with same formula gave consisting 2 peaks with relative intensity 9:1. So the formula is C4H10O. So first, It's giving 3:2. The intensity of the peak represents number of proton in proton NMR. Okay. So here the ratio is 3:2. That there are 5 proton only, correct? But we have 10 proton in the molecule. So there must have double. So 6:4. Okay. So there are only two types of proton. In that two types of proton, 6 proton are equivalent and other 4 proton are equivalent. So there are two different type of protons. There are two different categories of proton, I will say. So based on that we can draw the structure here. CH3, CH2O, symmetric molecule. So this and this will be equivalent. This and this will be equivalent. Now the second molecule is 9:1. So 9 proton are equivalent, other proton are different. So we can draw CH3, CH3, CH3O. So this is your 1 proton and this 3. So I'll draw this dotted line. This 9 protons will be equivalent. So what is the name of this? Diethyl ether. And what is the name of this? Tert-butyl alcohol. Tert-butyl. Or you can write 1, 2. So like 1 dimethyl ethanol. If you will read that organic spectroscopy, NMR inorganic, you will see that the detailed application of NMR. Okay. So with this I am stopping this NMR. I hope this will be helpful for you. And there is one more lecture of NMR which we will cover in the next lecture. Thank you.